That little ditty we used to torment our teachers with when we were kids goes something like this. Onward, upward, Mary had a go. Day by day she tied it to a rope, till at length they got past the rope, and Miss Mary had to run behind it. We had a lot of fun with that, but do you actually know how beautiful these words are? Here's the Song of Guyana's Children by W. Hawley Bryant. Born in the land of the mighty Roraima, land of great rivers and far-stretching sea, so like the mountains, the sea, and the river, great, wide, and deep in our lives would we be. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. In the land of Kaijur, shining splendor, land of the palm tree, the croton and fern, we would possess all the virtues and graces, we all the glory of goodness would learn. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be.
It means that we would not have gotten the statements of poll for every polling station. To be honest, the People's Republic Party have only a handful of statements of poll. The people who will have statements of poll for all the polling stations would be the large parties, which would be the coalition and the PPPC, because they would have been able to send scrutineers to all the polling stations. So let me say that verification process that we are hoping GCOM will have to return to complete will be largely between the coalition, that is the SOPs that the coalition has, and the SOPs that the PPPC has. Because the small parties only have a smattering of SOPs. Now, having said that, let me let you know that we small parties were given handouts with collated versions of the SOPs. We were very kindly given, because when we said, well, because we didn't have scrutineers at all the stations, I can tell you that one of the big parties very kindly offered us copies of a handout that had collated the results from the SOPs. Now, let me tell you, in a spirit of transparency, that as the presidential candidate for the PRP, I had a look at those results. It wasn't an in-depth look, because our election agent has that collated copy that we got from one of the big parties in her possession. But I can tell you this much. When I had a look at it, I was surprised because I saw results on it that did not bear out the results that I had from the smattering of SOPs that we collected at the polling stations where we had scrutineers.
I don't know. I was just fixing my hair because here it is that she is saying she's a pastor and she's saying that the results that were given to her party, the Guyana some Republican Party, right? The results were different from what they had. And they got those results from, obviously, the PPP. She didn't say the PPP. She said from one of those big parties. And that is what the PPP was doing. They were going around to the smaller parties and giving the results that they tabulated, that they actually tampered with, to give it to the small parties. And this woman, she's a pastor. She said in the spirit of transparency, right? I wish that Claudette Singh would talk to this lady. I wish that they would have a commission of inquiry, an international commission of inquiry, not any fictitious one set up by Irfan and them. And y'all will get the truth about the elections and how the PPP rigged the elections. Story done. The PPP rigged the elections, and they tried to stain the PNC people, the APNU AFC people with it. I feel sorry for the APNU AFC people. They got caught with their pants down and their ass slips down, so to speak. They got caught with those things down, and by the time they're ready to pull it up, it was too late. I don't know. But they were robbed of the 2020 elections. It was rigged. And on that basis, not just with what Auntie just said, but on the basis of the statements of polls and the recount, what happened at the recount, we saw. So we know. Anyways, where is she, by the way? Where is that pastor? Hello? Anybody knows where she is? Anyways, my name is Mark Benchop. This is the Ganesh Mahipaul show. Ganesh is a sweet boy. He's a star boy, and he wants to come on when the numbers are built up. So I don't know how long it's going to take for the numbers to build up. But share the link, and Ganesh will be on shortly, and I'll take my glasses off, and I will go. Good evening to all of you. Every single one of you, and especially the thousands who are listening to us via 107.1 FM on the ground. Guess who I have in the meantime? It's Ganesh Guess, because this is Ganesh show. I don't know how I'm going to sit next to this lady here. She is a firebrand. She is on the ground. She is in the community. She is in the villages. She's working. And then when she finished working, she comes on to do shows, to be interviewed on these types of shows, promoting the people's work in the communities, talking to the people from her heart. I'm not saying this because she's from Lancaster, Liverpool side, Manchester, Arles side, and we would have attended the same Winifred Gaskin Memorial Secondary School, and it's the best school on the current team. I'm saying it because I'm looking at some of these MPs who are working. I don't know. It reminds me of Beyonce's song. Is it Beyonce? Something about work? I don't know, man. I'm an old man. I don't know those songs. Work it, girl, work it, or whatever. Right? She's working. Honorable MP Coretta McDonald. Honorable MP, how are you? Honorable MP.
Hi, Mark. Good night to you. And thanks for having me. I am good. I'm not tired. I am not tired. Mm-hmm. I have a job to do, and that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing the people's business. And so I'm here. I just popped in, just got in home.
I don't mean to cut you. Yes, you're doing the people's job. Yes, you're promoting the people and the works in the communities and things that affect them. Now, let me publicly salute you for that. There one and two times I might take a little pin and bore some of y'all, but y'all don't get vexed. There's no hatred towards that. But I must commend you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. You're in all the communities, so to speak. I don't know where you get the energy from, but I applaud you. You're one of the very few MPs that I'm taking this opportunity to say salute to you. But look, before you talk about where you guys were today, I got messages. People, Guyanese people, the minute they see some people, so some folks call me and say, Mark, guess who is on the quarantine? Guess who Member of Parliament Coretta McDonald brought to the quarantine today? Till down at Kildonan Village. Ganesh Mahipaul. Ganesh was at Kildonan, is that correct?
Yes, Ganesh was there. Natasha was there, and of course our very own Dinesh Dinesh was there with us too.
Jaiprashad, yeah.
Jaiprashad. Dinesh was there with us. We also had there with us the regional chairman, region number 4, Mr. Daniel Siram. He was on the quarantine with us too, and so it's our way of taking our comrades around and allowing them to see what happens in other regions. So this whole thing for us, Mark, is about sharing. Let me use that. Best practices, sharing best practices. So what is happening on the quarantine, we would be able to pick out some of what is happening in the quarantine and bring that into region 4, and they can take some from what is happening in region 4 and use that on the quarantine, or use that in region 6 to ensure that our people are taken care of.
And I think that is exactly what needs to be done, the sharing, so that members of parliament from region 4 or region 10 can go to the quarantine, region 6. Region 6 MPs can go to Linden, to go to region 7 and other parts of the country to share the knowledge. That is what you call team spirit, teamwork. I applaud you guys. Not so long ago during the floods, yourself and Natasha, you guys were on tractor. Going out to the back dam, in the mud, in the rice field. That is what our MPs should be doing. Working for the people. I don't know, man. Look, one of the things I want to ask, and I want to let our folks know that I don't know if you heard of this story. This is a beautiful young lady. She's battling for her life today out in Region 9. She was shot, allegedly, by this guy who happens to be the REO for Region 9. He's currently in police custody. And now the allegation is that he shot, allegations, mind you, that he shot this young lady in her stomach or abdomen, right? That is what he did. That is what the allegations are. He is currently locked up, supposedly. Let us see what happens with this particular story. I don't know if you've heard of the story, Madam MP, and if so, your take on this, because we've got to see justice this time around. Your take.
Mark, I saw this very, very early this morning. As a matter of fact, let me say to you that as a teacher, we have reps all across this country. We, like everything else, we have teachers all across this country. We have branches. And so a teacher sent that to me this morning because the young lady is related to her. And so she sent that to me very, very early this morning, somewhere around what, maybe 4:30. Because those are the times that I am up and I am preparing what to do for the day. And so I got that message and I was alarmed that an officer, a public servant, let me call him that, who is there to serve the people, has used his authority to take advantage of persons who are less fortunate. And this is a trend of the PPP, you know, Mark. If we check, this is one of their trademarks. We saw just the other day, they installed Minister of Youth and Sports, Charles Ramson. We saw him displaying a gun in his waist. He was in region, I think it was region 8. They went down there supposedly to offer flood relief to miners. They were talking with miners, and we saw a gun exposed there. And you're wondering, why is it a minister would want to have a gun exposed like that? We saw Ram Kelawan when he was minister. Remember in Brazil when he was posted to Brazil as I think as the ambassador there. This is
Kelwan,
we got
it was Kelwan Lal.
Kelawan Lal, yes, Kelawan Lal.
The allegations were that he saw his ex at some party with her male cousin on the East Coast, and he decided to take his gun out of his waist, the only place he probably has a gun, his waist. He pulled his gun out and he fired some shots. Allegedly, the matter was reported at the Sparendam police station, and that was the end of every single thing. And then we also heard of Dharam Lal.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to talk about that one.
Go ahead. You say
yes. And so we had that one surfacing too, where while he served as an opposition MP, we had that issue with him where he pulled a gun, allegedly pulled a gun on I think it was a UN diplomat, on one of the diplomats,
because
and we know the whole story.
Because of being seen with some female, whatever it is, female friend of it. So these guys get jittery. They get jittery, and their emotions and their bumps raise. And so when they see their exes or whatever, they can't take it. They don't have the strength to take those sort of things when they see their exes. They can't. They're not man enough to control themselves. So they take the little peeny-weeny gun out and bust shots because that brings power to them, right? So Kelwan Lal did that. And speaking of Kelwan Lal, he was later sent and became the ambassador to Brazil, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of that, Kelwan Lal's wife died under mysterious circumstances. Back then, we heard when they were in office, they had an argument. She allegedly drank some poisonous substance. She was taken to the Georgetown Public Hospital where she died. And that was the end of the matter. The police never investigated what led to her death, what actually led to her death. He didn't take her to the hospital, but she reached to the hospital. We later learned the following day that he, Kelwan Lal, was rushed to a private hospital. All of these are allegations, but what we know is that his wife died under questionable circumstances. I don't know.
Well, Mark, don't forget, we had the same issue with the bodyguard of the installed Attorney General, who it is alleged that he committed suicide, and that was all you heard about it. There was no investigation. You didn't hear any family because they're saying he shot himself in front of his wife and some security guard, but no wife was questioned. Security guard wasn't questioned. So these fellas are just they're having guns in their possessions, and they're just trigger happy, and they feel that they can do whatever, and that is the PPP.
And that's the PPP. It looks as though it's their only opportunity to touch a gun when they're given a gun. And so they just want to show off that they finally do have a gun.
We had the other issue just the other day of a missing gun. It is alleged that the bishop went somewhere and somebody stole his gun. So all of these people...
He has since denied that. But if, for example, he was actually caught in a woman's house, if he has denied that, he said it wasn't him, he pulled a shaggy, right? It's got to be strange that he ran and left a gun. These guys are something else. Ganesh Mahipaul has on a hot yellow shirt. And let me just remind people that this is the Ganesh Mahipaul show, not the Ben Sharp show. So I will be leaving in just a couple of minutes. Ganesh, have you had cause to pull a gun, bust a shot, and anything? Have you had cause to do that?
Any shoot that I will be engaging in, I will be shooting substance, not blanks. That I can assure you.
Ganesh, Mahipaul, I heard you guys were in the on the quarantine, man. Kildonan Village. What was it before I take my leave? What was it like there on the quarantine, sir? Kildonan Village.
Well, it's always welcoming to engage with our supporters, and it is always welcoming to hear from them so that we will be able to assess the situation and basically go back to the drawing board and take their consideration take their suggestions into consideration so that we can continue to better equip ourselves with information and we can better be in a position to serve their interests. That is our foundation in terms of grounding with our comrades, grounding with our supporters, grounding with our well wishers. We do because we have to ensure that we get the necessary guidance from the bottom if we are intended to serve our purpose at the top.
Good job, and I commend you guys for doing that. And I know y'all have had a busy day, but yet you're here. Hence the reason that I've started for you for the past 20 minutes. I will take my leave, but just to remind, I agree with you in terms of busting shots of substance, and we all have a track record of doing that. Our guns, whenever we pull a gun, it doesn't go off. Fishing, wing, wing, wing. That's how their guns go off. Fishing, wing, wing, wing. Hey, have a great show, guys. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much for holding for me, Mark. I greatly appreciate that. You know, Coretta would have indicated early on the program because I was listening to it while I was getting ready to come on, and she did indicate that she just stepped in, and she knows that I had a longer drive than her, so I came in a bit later than her. But nonetheless, because of our love for our people and because we have a duty to them, which we have sworn to, and we find service to humanity as an exceptional but willing job to do, we are here nonetheless after an exhausting day, I would put it as that. You know, we actually left this morning at 8 o'clock. And to leave Georgetown at 8, I had to leave my house earlier than that. And we not too long came back. We have to do what we have to do because our interest is in that of the younger generation. And we want a better Guyana for them. So it requires us fighting now for a better Guyana so that they can enjoy. Thank you, Mark.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Have a fishing wing 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 show.
Fishing wing.
Coretta, thank you very much for being on time. I must say that I greatly appreciate Mark Benchcop stepping in and filling that gap for me because I could not have been on at the direct time due to constraints in terms of traveling to reach where I live, and you know that. I want to welcome all the viewers. I want to welcome all the listeners to Benchcop Radio 107.1 FM. Those who are listening to us here on social media, who are watching us here on social media also, and those who are hearing us from their homes, those who are also at the level of the radio station. I want to wish them happy Eid Mubarak. Today is Eid al-Adha. And I want to send out Eid greetings to all our Muslim brothers and sisters, to all our Muslim brothers and sisters who will be partaking or who would have partaken in Eid today. And I know you will want to do the same, Coretta, so let me give you that opportunity to do that.
Well, Ganesh, thanks for having me here on your show. First of all, I want to extend to our viewers happy Eid greetings to our Muslim brothers and sisters who would have observed the festival of Eid, and to all, I want to say happy Eid. I trust that we would allow the peace and goodwill, happiness and trust of this festival to eliminate or to light up our ways. Let me say that, to light up our ways so that that radiance can be lifted or laid upon others so that they too can be part of the light.
Hi, correct. Thank you very much. I actually had a little incident there with the internet, but I'm back on and I did hear you. I want to encourage our viewers, our listeners to share this live stream on social media. We need to ensure that the information reach far and wide. I like the number I'm seeing, but I believe that it is necessary for all of us to share the live stream because many people must be informed. Our duty is to provide information. I want us to talk a little bit about the education system. I want us to talk about what our friend Priya Manikchan has been doing and what Priya Manikchan continues to do with the education system, how it is in a manner, in my view, that is not taking into account the well-being and welfare of our children and our parents and the wider society as a whole. If we can start, Coretta, with this $19,000 cash grant. Well, I think it's $15,000 cash grant and $4,000 uniform allowance. So we need to understand that clearly. It is $15,000 as a cash grant and $4,000 as the uniform allowance. The first point I would like to make before I bring you in is that these monies were approved months ago. Months ago, they were approved earlier in the year. And this sudden rollout or rolling out of the distribution leaves much to be desired because we are in a COVID pandemic and the police and the COVID task force seem not to want to zero in on these large gatherings for the acceptance of this $15,000 cash grant and $4,000 uniform allowance. And they are basically, in my view, super spreader events of the COVID 19 virus. And I would not be shocked or amazed if probably 2, 3, or even a month from now, we see an increase in the number of COVID 19 cases. And I am saying, Coretta, that the Ministry of Education could have utilized all those days uh, prior to now, where they could have done this distribution in a more organized fashion, where they could have catered for forms one a particular day, form two a particular day, form three a particular day, or prep A, prep B, but you don't get all the parents, 900 and something parents for one school, 1,000 and something parents for one school, flocking the environment in this COVID pandemic to collect this little pittance. I believe that more monies should have been given to our parents and our students, but also I wholly believe that the money could have been utilized in a different manner where you can guarantee that our children will benefit. And this nonsensical wording of Honorable Priya Manikchan saying that even if they buy a black tank with it is water that they can provide for the children, or even if they do something else, they can provide it for the children, that is hogwash. It is hogwash because we would have already criticized the way they distributed that $10,000 cash grant, where we know that there were parents who bought toothpicks, who bought cigarettes, who bought rum, who bought other things that did not directly contribute to the upliftment of the child educational wise. So, Coretta, I want you to talk a little about this cash grant, the manner of its distribution. What is your position from a teacher's perspective, and what is the union's perspective on the cash grant?
All right, Ganesh, let me say first of all, I don't know which category you're going to place me in, which cap you want me to wear. Whether you want me to wear the cap of the general secretary, the elected. Let me repeat that: the elected general secretary. I wasn't selected nor installed. I'm the elected general secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, and I have been appointed as an MP. So you tell me which one of the caps you want me to wear, because I recognize that there's a whole big mix-up with the Minister of Education. And I'm not surprised, because since she can shout for rape in a parliament when there was nothing like that happening, and since she can go out, stand in the chair within the walls of parliament to use she and declare that she is a preposition, I'm not surprised that she's confused whenever she has to speak about Coretta MacDonald. Because when we talk about schools grant and those kinds of things, and we talk about teachers' issues, I speak there, especially when I'm speaking about to the Ministry of Education, I speak as General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. But I noticed the Manichan girl, she likes to label me as Coretta MacDonald, APNU AFC Member of Parliament. And I want her to know that I'm a proud PNC. I will always continue to be a PNC. And I will always stand tall to represent, whether I'm wearing the cap of the General Secretary or I'm wearing my MP cap. I will continue to stand tall and to represent either one of those two entities, those two great entities that I represent. And so, Ganesh, when we talk about the school's cash grant,
let me clarify first before you go on. Let me clarify first before you go on. You are my guest tonight as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union.
Thank you so much.
Did not invite you under the cover of you being a member of parliament. And I believe your listeners, our listeners, should know that you are the shadow minister of labor. So in respect of the fact that you're shadow minister of labor, I also recognize that you are the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. And I've invited you as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, and I would like you to address me and your audience and our audience from the perspective of being the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union.
Thank you, Ganesh. But I just want to say to our viewers too, that I'm even more than that. I'm a teacher and I'm a parent. Good. And so I want to start off with this school's cash grant. Anybody who is sensible would know that if we have a label that says schools cash grant, then we know exactly where that is supposed to be channeled to, what we are supposed to be doing with that grant. So to hear about if they buy black tanks or if they buy stove or if they buy a bicycle, I'm just throwing these in. Well, not a bicycle, let me say a stove or a black tank. That's very that's waste talks coming there. And the minister, I find her, she gets involved in a whole lot of empty talks. As a matter of fact, her mouth comes into motion before she engages her brain, and so we get that coming. But putting aside all of that, the cash grant that we're talking about, this school's cash grant, in the mind of GTU, it was not a bad idea to offer assistance to our school children across this country, to offer assistance to parents across this country. But one thing is important. You see, when we don't consult, when we don't meet, when we don't listen to other suggestions, we make all kinds of unnecessary mistakes and we do wild things. And so I'm saying this to say, if there was any form of consultation, that $19,000, rather than going cash into parents' hand, it would have gone elsewhere. Cash would have gone elsewhere, and parents would have been given something even more substantial. And so we're saying that grant could have been used to purchase tablets since we're going through this COVID pandemic. Many of our students and our pupils have been home for more than a year. They've not been able to enter the classrooms physically. Many of them have not been able to be engaged during the period that they were at home, because in most instances we found children could not participate in online classes because there was either only one gadget in the home or there was no gadget at all. And the one gadget that was there sometimes was mommy's phone or daddy's phone. And when mommy had to leave the house, the phone went with mommy. And so we thought that a sensible government would have thought of going out there to consult. If you did not want to consult with the parents, consult with the representative of the teachers. And we would have been able to share with you, we the practitioners, we the ones who practice in the classrooms, would have been able to share with you suggestions of how you can go about doing what you want to doing, using up this sum of monies. But you know what? This is the PPP's way of always wanting to bribe people. This is the PPP's way of always wanting to have corruption. And so when these monies would have been approved a long time ago, they did not use up the monies then, because they want to use the monies. They have particular timings when they want to use the monies. And we know that that local government elections and so on, they are going to be around the corner pretty soon. And so this is their way of offering a little small piece, trying to soften the hearts of the citizens in this country. But our people are intelligent people, and they know what they have to do. The other thing is, after mistreating and mismanaging for almost a whole year, now you're trying to bribe people with $19,000, which again, let me say, it's a waste of time and a waste of the use of hardworking taxpayers, their dollars. You know, this grant going into people's hands, Ganesh, you and I know that many of those parents out there, they have been dismissed by this same installed regime who claims because we care. They dismiss these people, from sweeper cleaners right up to persons who possess PhDs. They have dismissed them because they felt that these persons are supporters of the coalition. So when you give me $19,000, I have court's bill to pay. My children have to eat because we're not getting, one sum has already been taken away from us. We have light bill to pay. We got something else to do. Mommy needs some credit in her phone. And so these are the things that those monies, the cash would have been used for. And we can't run away and hide our faces in the sand and say, these things are not going to happen. These are the things that will happen. So that thought that went into issuing cash, it was, for me, it was deliberate. We felt, this is our opinion, that it's a deliberate act to bribe the people. That's what it's all about. It's another act of corruption, because you know what? And I want to say this, I'm hoping that the installed minister and her team, or she would have her team going out there to look for all of those students who have dropped out of schools, to ensure that their parents are collecting those $19,000. Because you know what will happen? Those students who are out of schools, it is my belief that some of these monies will end up in the hands of some of the very persons who are distributing the monies. GTU's position is, since you were bent on giving out the cash, well then give it to the parents. Let parents collect it. But our advice to our teachers is that teachers should not be handling money. That was our advice to our teachers. They're going to be a part of the process, but they're not supposed to be handling monies, because that will go against the circular that was issued by the Ministry of Education many moons ago, which is still active and operational at this time. With regards to COVID, These people just don't care. They just don't care. Because when it's not only one school, I should let you know, that is collecting school grants at a time. The schools have been placed in clusters, and so many parents are there. And I think this is one of the things that the PPP likes. One of the things that they like, where they just feel good when they see long lines of people. You check it. Since the PPP were installed in government, you check the passport office, long lines. GRA, long lines. Everywhere, long lines. You go to the police station, sometimes they got lines at the police station. Now parents have to be in long lines to collect this $19,000, knowing fully well that we have COVID here with us, and every day, when it's not 3, it's 4, it's 5 or 6 persons dying from COVID. They just don't care. If you look at what is happening again, and I'm talking here about gatherings with the Ministry of Housing, long lines, big gathering, over 400 persons. We just had that at Linden. And so they just pretend to, these are the sheep that we have, the wolves that we have in sheep clothing, where they pretend all the time that they care, but they just don't care.
Correct. Thank you very much. I heard you loud and clear. I have another issue I want you to address. And this one has to do with the fact that you can only receive this $19,000 once your child is registered for school on or before June 30th of 2021. I think this is unfair to the parents who would have registered their children after this date. And it's unfair because of 2 reasons that I'm going to share with you. One has to do with the fact that we're in a COVID-19 pandemic. And because we're in a COVID-19 pandemic, you have to take into account that there will be situations where people will take their children late to register them for school. There will be situations of that nature. So you have to take that into account. And people will not want to go and cluster the registration classroom and the registration place. So it's unfair. School has not even reopened. There's no date set for reopening of school. Why is this deadline June 30th? Why do you want to cause that on to people that they had to register their child on or before June 30th in order to be entitled to this cash grant? That is utterly unfair. Once your child is registered, regardless of when, providing that they participate in the school year of September, they should be entitled to this cash grant. That's my first point. Secondly, there is no cash grant going to private school students or parents of the private school. Not everyone who attends private school are rich, Coretta. I know of situations where parents who work at the private school, like the sweeper cleaners, they have their children going there because they get a discount from the proprietor or the owner's school. So they prefer their children go there, and they have greater aspect of managing their children easily in the system. There are teachers who teach in the private school system, and they also have their children going there. They get discount from the proprietor or the owners. So they also have their children going, and they also contribute to paying taxes in this country. So why should they not benefit also from this cash grant? And then you have situations where there are parents who genuinely struggle and send their children to private schools because they believe in the private school system more than the public school system. We should not deprive them of this cash grant because of their belief, because of their right to choose whether they want to send their children to the public school or the private school. And then we have to also understand that the taxes are paid by all hard-working Guyanese. That is on the payroll of the government. Once you receive money from government, you pay taxes. When you go and shop in the market or supermarket, you pay VAT and taxes. You pay Guyanese once they are in this country and they buy stuff or they work and so on, they pay taxes. These monies are tax-paying monies, taxpayers' monies. This 19,000 is not coming from Priya's pocket. It's not coming from Jagbir's pocket. It's not coming from Irfan Ali's pocket. It's not coming from the United States of America, Canada, or England. It is coming from the coffers of the Guyanese purse, of the public Guyanese purse. And all persons who are parents with children in the school system, whether it is public or private, should be entitled to this cash grant. And there should be more monies and more avenues of ensuring that bettering the lives of our children is considered. What is your take on that, Coretta? And what is your, and I remind you, the deadline of June 30th, I want you to talk to.
Ganesh, again, we're seeing here clearly visionless planning. And I'm saying this because in the nursery schools, every year around this time or even before this time, nursery school head teachers are asked to submit information to their departments of education to say how many first years they can accept, how many they can accommodate at their schools. And so with those very numbers, the $19,000 should have been made available right there. You don't know as yet who these persons are, but since you would have gotten numbers already from every single nursery school, and I'm starting there first, every single nursery school, then you should have made provision for those. Visionless planning again, visionless planning. Plenty talks, nothing else behind it. And so, since you would have gotten those numbers, it means, therefore, that even if, like you said just now, even if that parent decides to register her child July 31st, that $19,000 should be there waiting for that parent. Or you should have another date when you give that you set aside to give the parents, or 2 sets of dates to issue your cash grants, 2 dates. So you cater for those parents who would have, for those children who are in school presently, and you're catering for those who are going to be coming out to schools for the first time, and this is nursery school. In the secondary school and in the primary schools, well, it's already there standard. You would have grades 1, grades 2, grades 3, grades 4, grades 5, grades 6. That's already there. But now, and then in the secondary schools, you have grades 7 to grades 10. There is also, and right here, when we look at what is happening, there is discrimination. Persons are being discriminated against. And here I'm touching on the private schools, and I'm also touching on those students who are writing CXC. They are not going to get the grant. But we have students who were supposed to be writing CXC at this time, but their parents would have opted to have those students, their exams either deferred to January or July, during the same period, June, July, August, or May, June, July, that period in 2022, because they did not feel that their children were ready for the exams. What about those children? No provisions would have been made for those students. Discrimination, and we still talk about we care, huh? We care. Then the private schools, like you just said, every single one of the parents in the primary school, they pay taxes. So why is it, if this installed regime is giving out a grant to students and pupils, why the private school is not included? And you know what is strange? It is strange that the private schools have to go in accordance with the policies outlined by the Ministry of Education. The private schools have to be acknowledged by the Ministry of Education before they can begin their operations, or even while they would have started their operations. They have to get everything else straightened out with the Ministry of Education. The officers from the departments of education visit those schools to check on what is happening there. And so I don't know why this discrimination. Is it that some are better than some? These are just thoughts that are going through my mind. But I'm saying every single Guyanese child within this country should receive the $19,000. Every single Guyanese child in this country. And even if you're not a Guyanese by birth, as long as you're attending school, you should receive that $19,000. But here again, these are all little loopholes that are being created for people to thief the money. As straight as that.
Thank you very much, Coretta. Let me say to you that I am aware that Priya Manikchan is watching this program. I know that she always look at our programs. I know that the People's Progressive Party, they have their people looking at our programs. So let me take this opportunity to say to the Honorable Priya Manikchan and to the entire People's Progressive Party installed government, it is the position of the APNU AFC that in your consideration to give cash grants to children of public schools, more specifically the $15,000 cash grant to children of public schools, we would like to see that all students, pupils of Guyana, whether you are in public school or private school, receive this cash grant. We know that cost of living has increased significantly. We know that times are very, very difficult in Guyana right now, and notwithstanding how small it is, it will be very helpful to our parents and our teachers and our pupils and all our people who are involved in the education sector. Of course, our foremost concern has to do with how the money will be utilized by the respective recipients. We believe that it should be spent directly on the children or on a child, because it's the child that the money is really intended for, and we would like to see that it is spent meaningfully so that it can enhance the child's education status or the children education status. I trust that Priya Manikchan will hear us and that they will bring to fruition the cash grant to private school children. I wish that they will also remove this deadline of June 30th. I see no sensibility in having it at June 30th because there is no date was set for the reopening of school as yet. And even if they do set a date as September, let's say September 9th, not because a parent decides to register their child on the 8th of September, they should be deprived of the cash grant. It will be utterly unfair because there are many reasons, many circumstances that is currently contributing to parents not taking their children to school for registration. It has to do with the fear of COVID-19, among many other issues. Probably they don't have that money to facilitate registration, because I know that there's some schools that require a fee for registration. And I also know that even though the ministry says that if the child cannot pay the money, they should still be accepted, there are some schools that really and truly force this payment of money. So all of those are factors that one has to consider. The point I am making is that whatever date is set for the reopening of school, the day before should be the deadline if you want to put a deadline, because you have to have some level of order, some semblance in society, so that you can have proper management and proper accountability in place, because these are taxpayers' money and they come under the scrutiny of the Auditor General. And this will, of course, this system or this rollout of cash grant has to be audited. Now I come to another point, Coretta, that I'm still sticking with my good friend, Honorable Priya Manichan, because the discussion tonight focuses really on her. Now, the other thing that we have to take into account is the reopening of school. And I see that this government, this installed regime under the ministerial leadership of Priya Manik Chan, is heading in a direction where they want to open school at a date in September. For all intents and purpose, I see them heading in that direction. So, do you support the reopening of school from a GTU perspective? Do you believe that schools are now? It's a twofold question. Do you support the reopening of school, and do you believe that Guyana is ready for the reopening of school?
All right, Ganesh, I would answer the question this way. This is how GTU feels. GTU feels that we can approach the system of blended learning. GTU would support the system of blended learning. But first of all, there are certain prerequisites that we are asking for, and we're asking that we first start off by having an open discussion between the GTU and the Ministry of Education. Now, as long as we agree on that and we list all that is supposed to be happening in schools, all the materials that we are supposed, all the materials / resources that we are supposed to have, then we can approach a blended learning system of reopening schools. Let me say to you and to our viewers that we cannot reopen schools fully. There is no way that we can reopen schools fully. For us to do that, we first have to start looking at other buildings which we are going to use as annexes for school. Because COVID is here and we have to observe the 6 feet apart. And the minute we start doing that, it means we're talking space. And we don't have space. And you know, if you look around, if you travel this country and you look at some of the schools that we have and the manner in which they're built or they were built, you know from the onset that we don't have space in a school with a population of 300. We don't have space to accommodate all of them at any one time. And so that's one of the issues we have to start if we're going to think about reopening schools fully for face-to-face learning, then we have to start looking at buildings. 2, we have to talk about the nurseries. What system are we going to put in place for them with regards to them wearing of mask? How many hours we are going to have them in school, because they're usually there from 8 to 12. And you know, and now I've recognized that we've gone to what? I think it's 2-7. I think the age now for nursery school is 2-7. I think I saw something like that moving around the place. Of course, nothing official has come to GTU, so I'm just seeing, you know, a couple of things flying around the place. But move from the 2-7 or 2-6, the 3-6 that we have presently. As an adult, it's very, very difficult for you to wear a mask for 1 hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, because it's not comfortable. And so if you were to think now about those little children, you would understand what I'm saying. So we have to start looking, we have to start putting all of these issues in point forms. So we talked about additional buildings, we're talking about hours, we're talking about what is going to happen with the grades 1. So the grades 1, 2, and the nursery, we can put them in the same category because they're babies, they're that age. How long we're going to have them. And then we'll have to talk about more sweeper cleaners. We have to talk about more wash basins. We have to talk about more hand sanitizers. We have to start talking about even more toilet facilities, because if we're going to put students in school during this pandemic, it means that at any one time in a school with 7 or 8 sanitary facilities, 5, whether we have 5 for girls and 5 for boys, reopening schools fully during this pandemic, we have to talk about more sanitary blocks. I'm not sure that monies would have been budgeted for that. And so there are a series of issues that we have to come to the table to sit, agree, disagree, and agree before we can think about reopening schools. And so if we get to that stage and the GTU is satisfied, then we would be able to say we are in agreement and we would support the reopening of school for the blended approach. We can't talk about rotating. We can't talk about rotating, because if you're going to rotate, that's a waste of time. Because if you're going to rotate, it means we're bringing one grade today, another grade tomorrow, another grade the next day, another grade the next day. It wouldn't work in the secondary schools. It would be able to work in the primary and in the nursery schools, but it wouldn't work in the secondary schools. And even if we bring them one day and we do this rotation, it means that if we're going to use the grades 1 on Monday, what happens from Tuesday to Friday with the grades 1? They still have to be engaged, and they still have to be at home to be engaged online. So that's the approach that GTU will go for. What we would support is reopening of schools partially for grades 9, maybe 9, 10, and 11. In the primary schools, we can agree for grades 5 and grade 6. Nothing else other than that. And mind you, we must ensure that all of the systems are in place with regards to the health and safety of not only our students and pupils, but our teachers and additional staff within those schools.
Thank you, Coretta. Let me ask this question. Relationship like between GTU and the Ministry of Education?
I missed the first part of it, sorry.
What is the relationship like between GTU and the Ministry of Education?
The Ministry of Education and the GTU, what is the relationship? At present, the relationship is like, can be linked to a husband and wife having a fallout. That's the relationship presently, and that's being honest, because we are supposed to be a professional group of people dealing with educational issues with the only aim of moving the education system forward and moving our children, being able to better equip our children for the future. But that's not what we are having with the Ministry of Education. As a matter of fact, let me say to you that just after this regime was installed, I think we had about 6 meetings. The last meeting might have been somewhere, I think, in February or March, somewhere there. And after then, there is no meeting. We have set statutorily monthly meetings for the professional group, but we've not had that happening. The last agreement we had in terms of the meeting, the Ministry of Education, they offered an excuse that they couldn't meet at that time. We rescheduled that meeting, and maybe that date has probably not reached us yet. And so there has been little or no communication between the GTU and the Ministry of Education with regards to where we want to go, where we expect to go. And all of this has come about because the installed Minister of Education, she has a problem with Coretta MacDonald. And her problem with Coretta MacDonald is that because Coretta MacDonald holds the position as MP for the APNU AFC, she has got difficulties with that. And we find it strange. And not only the GTU, but people across this country are finding it strange. You know why? Because Coretta MacDonald, being the General Secretary for the Guyana Teachers Union and being an MP, is not anything strange. We have had Kamal Chand, the late Kamal Chand, sitting as president of GAU and as MP when the PPP were in power prior to 2015. When they were in opposition, he sat there as MP for the PPP, sat as president for GAU, and also as president for FETUG. Nobody had a problem with that. As I speak, we have Paul Narain, who is now sitting as president of GAU, and he's also member of parliament for the People's Progressive Party. I mean, how is it that sometimes it's okay for the shoes, for you to wear blue shoes, and then at another time you have a difficulty wearing blue colored shoes? So this kind of foolish petty politics that we play is what is creating some of the problems that we're experiencing right now between the GTU and the Ministry of Education.
I was going to mention that name, Paul Narain, who currently sits as a member of parliament for the People's Progressive Party, as a member of parliament, and he's also president of the Guyana Agriculture Workers Union. So how can he be sitting there as an MP and still represent GAU, but you cannot sit as an MP and be a representative of the Guyana Teachers Union? So I find that hypocritical and duplicitous indeed. But I guess in retrospect, when Priya, my friend, looks at this program, if she's missing it right now, because I was told earlier she's on, and when I mentioned her name, she suddenly left. But I hope she joins back, or she continues from where she left off, so that she can understand that if C. Paul Narain can sit as GAU president, as an MP for the PPP, then Coretta MacDonald can sit as an MP and GTU General Secretary. That is the point I want to make. And I believe also the public should know that Dr. Vindhya Vashni Prasad is the Minister of Social Services, Human Services and Social Security, and she's also the president for the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. So, and that's an organization that will also have to get representation from time to time. There are many other persons that are sitting in the National Assembly, and the purpose there is for you to represent the interests of your people, of the people you want to lead, the people that you believe you're the best leaders for. And that does not mean that you cannot sit there if you are sitting on a union or in an organization. Utter nonsense. But let me come to this post that Priya Manikchand made on social media yesterday at 1935. She took it upon herself to circulate 2 letters publicly, and I'm not going to deal with the first one, but the second one caught my attention. And I'm not sure Honorable Priya logged in back to this program. I will have to check just now to verify. But I hope she does, because I want this issue to be clarified. There is this letter that emanated from the office of the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and
I think Ganesh is having some difficulties there. I don't know. I think Ganesh is having some yes, he's going. Yes,
sorry
Ganesh?
about that. Yes, I'm having some technical. I had some technical difficulties. I was saying that there is this letter that emanated from the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance on the 14th of July 2021. This letter was written. Hear me clear. This letter was written on the 14th of July 2021. And it was written to Mr. Alfred King, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, 26 Brick Dam, Stabrook, Georgetown. Dear Mr. King, RE, duty-free concession for eligible teachers for the year 2021. It reads, reference is hereby made to the above-mentioned subject matter. In keeping with Clause 3.0 of the Memorandum of Agreement between the Ministry of Education and the Guyana Teachers Union, entered onto the 24th day of October 2018, I am advised and hereby give approval for the issuance of duty-free concessions for teachers uh, educators for the year 2021 for eligible teachers as per list provided in your correspondence dated 25th of May 2021, and it was signed by
Oh, he's having some difficulties again.
Coretta, like the internet want to misbehave with me today.
I noticed
But I
they don't want the information to come out.
this letter was signed on this letter was written on the 14th of July 2021, and
Mhm.
it was signed by Gail Teixeira, and it was received by the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education on the 13th of July 2021. Now, how in
Mhm.
God's name do you write a letter on the 14th of July and it is received on the 13th of July? Are the calendar that the ministries are using dating backwards? Like if today is the 14th, tomorrow will be the 13th? Something gotta be wrong. And there our viewers are seeing the letter. It was written on the 14th of July 2021 and it was received on the 13th of July.
Yeah.
So these
Mhm.
people, the ministry, received this letter before it was written. They
Yes.
received it before it was written. And I
Mhm.
see it was copied to a number of people there, but not to the Guyana Teachers Union. How
Exactly.
can you reference a letter to the about the Guyana Teachers Union and don't copy it to the Guyana Teachers Union? Correct.
Mhm.
Anyhow, it wasn't copied to you or to the president or to the union. Did the Honorable Priya Manikchan take it upon herself to send you a copy to see that approval was given?
Ganesh, let me say first of all, this whole letter business, this letter that was posted by Priya, again, it's showing how incompetent Priya is. That is one. Two, it is showing how notorious of a liar this woman is. She is a notorious gangster. That same woman there that you have in the picture. She's a notorious liar. And you know, when you have people like these holding high government office, you can imagine with that kind of attitude, you don't have to look far to wonder why we're having so many issues in our society. But let me say this, that letter was posted on Priya's Facebook. She, you know, she likes to use the social media. She likes to jump up there to rather than meeting with her counterparts to talk. She doesn't do that. She likes to go on social media to put up all of these things, thinking that people are stupid. But every time she does that, she's only exposing her stupidity. That's what she's doing. But let me say, the origin of this whole thing stemmed from a protest, a picketing action that the union's general council held yesterday in front of the Ministry of Education, where coming out of our general council meeting, which is statutory, we usually have general council meetings 3 times per year, once every term, and these general council meetings are held Tuesday immediately after school closes. We recognize that last Tuesday we could not have had this meeting because our representatives, and these are 42 representatives across the country, in addition to 7 more reps, along with the other 10, the 10 elected officers, and the IPP, who's another officer. So coming out of the discussions, the general council meeting, where the issue of
Let me
our
correct me
relationship.
just let me just make this point very clear. I
Mm,
do know that you're sharing your opinion and I do know that you're sharing your views, but because we are on a national radio station and because we are here on our social media platform and so on, there's certain language that we have to be careful in terms of
I
how we're
stand,
using.
I stand corrected, sir.
Thank
I'm
you
so
very much.
guided.
Thank you very much. So I
I'm
want to make
so
it very
guided.
clear to the public
I'm
that
so
we
I'm
are
so guided.
retracting the description of the Honorable Minister of Education,
You
installed
know,
Honorable Minister of Education, from being we're withdrawing those two words, notorious liar. I want to make that public apology, but I do believe that Miss Manik Chan is misguiding our nation. And I think that that is the line that Miss McDonald was going down when when she used those two words, that she is deeply misguiding our nation in terms of the policies and programs of the education ministry and the direction and relationship with the Guyana Teachers Union. Am I correct, Miss McDonald?
I'm so guided, sir. But let me say to
Thank
you,
you.
I just needed to say those things because when the minister go out there, as a matter of fact, let me continue to say what I was saying and then I'll come to that. So General Council decided at one point after they were inquiring about what is happening with our agreement, why haven't teachers been paid 2019, 2020, and 2021? No increases in salaries. None of the salaries benefits we got, except for the Whitley Council that we have to be fighting and pushing and pushing and tugging for all the time. And the other non-salaries benefits, they're also lagging. General Council decided at that point that we were going to suspend the agenda for the rest of the day and we were going to go out there. So we were out there. That with 19 members of the Guyana Teachers Union, and let me say for the records and for all and sundry to hear, all of our reps were present at the General Council meeting yesterday. This is what we did. We had the reps from Demerara, which equaled 20 in numbers, sitting there participating in this meeting physically. All the other members, which would have given us a total about 65 or 67 members, 67 members, all of the others, the 57, they were online participating virtually. And every single member at that General Council meeting voted for the motion that was moved. And so it's not a case where Coretta MacDonald decided that this must happen or that must happen, or the president, Brother Mark Light, decided that this must happen and this should happen now and it shouldn't happen. A motion was moved by a member, it was seconded, and it was voted for by every single one of those members who were present at the meeting. So having said that, we moved. Priya Manik Chan got upset and that tickled her that the GTU could have gone in front of the Ministry of Education to host a picketing activity. Now, I want to say for our viewers that industrial action is nothing strange anywhere across the world. When conditions are not met, workers' representatives, they stand up for their members. When we have issues, national issues, we had issues with elections, we had the guardians of democracy, we had so many people holding picketing lines. So this is not anything strange. And so as a result of that picketing exercise, the fraudulent minister decided that she was going to embarrass the Guyana Teachers Union, not knowing that she was embarrassing her own self and exposing some of the incompetence of some of the persons she has working there with her. But so she posted those letters. She did not take time off, and I figured that she can't read. She did not recognize that one date was there for the written letter and another date was there for the date received. And it was not only another date, but it was an earlier date that the letter was received. The letter was written on the 14th. It was received on the 13th. I don't know how in heaven that can happen, but maybe this is another miracle. We had Jesus as a miracle baby, the Savior. And so this is probably another miracle. This is a miracle letter that it was received even before it was written. Now this letter, the GTU, if you notice in the instructions or the recommendation that was made there by, I think the recommendation made there, it's advising HRM. the heading there says HRM. Please follow up with the GTU. And that too is signed the 14th of July 2021. And I figure that is coming from the Madam Gail Teixeira, signed on the 14th. But the ministry received this letter on the 13th. No copy was sent to the GTU. The ministry did not send any copy to GTU. So if we hadn't that picketing exercise yesterday, we would not have known that a letter was already done and sent to the Ministry of Education. But I'm happy that the letter was posted so that everyone across this country and the people all across this world would see how deceitful the installed Minister of Education is. Because, you know, she went out there going on sweating that GTU and Coretta McDonald, and they're telling untruth. Let me say that, or they're saying things that are far from the truth. Here it is. Look, we got a letter and they're fully aware of it. Nothing was copied to us. None was sent to us. But here is it. You have a letter that is dated the 14th, but it was received on the 13th. Yes, professional people behave like the people who care behave like that, where they receive a letter on the 13th that was written on the 14th. It's a shame and a disgrace. And what I think what I should do right now, if it's not going to cause any problem for the host of this program, is to right now call for a no confidence motion against this installed minister for being dishonest.
That would certainly not cause any problem with our program, because nothing is wrong with there being a public call for a no confidence motion in an installed minister, or according to the guidance from one of our viewers, the promoter of alternate facts. I think I like that one, the promoter
like
of alternate facts. And I see another comment saying we have a cabinet of comedians. Those are very interesting comments coming from our listeners and our viewers on social media. But we must, as decent people of the coalition, respect the fact that in the National Assembly, and by virtue of the position that the Honorable Priya Manikchand holds, we have to define her by her portfolio as Honorable Minister of Education, or as we would put it, installed Honorable Minister of Education. So I want our viewers to understand that there are certain rules and regulations that govern our appearance on programs of this nature that is linked to the radio station here in Georgetown, that falls under the rules and regulations of the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority. Perhaps if we were streaming just on social media, it would have been a whole different game show. But we must respect the rules and regulations in our country. We must adhere to the level of decency that is promoted through rules and regulations, and we have to satisfy certain requests that comes from the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority. And we do not want to bring this radio station into disrepute. It is a mode of information dissemination for us, and I know that my guest, Miss Coretta McDonald, and myself, and also the operators and staff at this radio station, would also understand our position, and more so our viewers, our listeners, and our followers will understand our position. But that does not change the fact that we have an installed Minister of Education that seems not to focus on developing the education sector where it can benefit our children, the future generation. Ms. Coretta McDonald, in your closing remarks, can you tell us what do you think of Priya Manikchand as an individual, as a person, and as a minister of government?
Let me say to you, if I can recall my thoughts about Priya Manikchand. This young lady that I used to know back then, very, 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 very humble, somebody you can talk to, somebody who can relate to you. But I think right now she is, we all know that she is not a PPP, but she's part of the civic component. But I think she has to work over time now to prove to the PPP that she's worth her salt there. Hence the reason for the arrogance and all the attitude of being a promoter of alternate facts. and those, yes, I'm going to use that because I don't want to bring this radio station into disrepute.
Thank you.
But I think, like I said, back then to now, totally different individual. And I would wish, and I'm hoping that if she's listening to this program, that she would recognize
I'm guided that she's back on.
Some of the mistakes that she would have made. And that she put away all the pride and the pomp and the scene and the ceremony and get down to seriously talking the business of education. Get down to seriously wanting to engage the teacher's representative. Because I can tell you what, Ganesh, I can say this to our viewers and to you. The GTU is not a political organization. The GTU is an organization that has existed for many, many years. And it's a credible organization. And our aim is to represent our members to the fullest. And let me make this clear. Yes, we have members who sometimes go contrary to the policies, but we have to represent them. It doesn't mean that we don't pull them over the coals and close the doors and tell them what we have to tell them. But when we go out there, we have a different front because we have to represent our members. And I want to say that the GTU will continue to represent our teachers. We will continue to agitate for them. We will continue to shout for those teachers who can't shout for themselves. And may I remind us that while the GTU is now being branded as a political organization because the PPP installed regime is in government, is holding the seat of government, it's just amazing that in 2018, when the coalition was holding the seat of government and the GTU took industrial action, and I'm sure everyone remembers that. When we took industrial action, it was a cap in the feather of the PPP. They didn't see anything wrong with that then. The GTU was not a political organization then. And like the installed vice president said a few days ago, that he's surprised at Coretta McDonald. And you know, he's talking about the GTU and the GTU and the GTU. And he went so far to say that Coretta McDonald used to come to him for advice. So we weren't political then, but we are being political now. It's just petty politics, immature people, and people who are promoters of alternate facts. That's them plain. But boiling down to Priya, let me say this. She could be a nice person if she wants to be. And the things can happen if she wants them to happen. But I think maybe she has to take instructions, directions from her superiors, and she's got to prove to them that she is more PPP than the real PPP. But I want to let her know I have no hard feelings against her. And as long as she's ready to work for the teachers of Guyana and for the children of Guyana and for Guyana as a whole, the GTU and Coretta McDonald, we are ready to work with her. We have always been extending that olive branch, and we'll continue to do that because we are professionals and we know what it means to stand there to represent and to impart knowledge into students to make them better persons. And so I would just want to close by saying to our viewers, and even to Priya, if she's listening there still,
Oh,
to
she's on.
remind
I
us
told
all,
her she's on.
that COVID is real, COVID kills, and that we should all make an effort to ensure that every single one of us is safe. Don't bother with the jugglers. Don't bother with all those who say all kinds of things. Let's just remember that COVID is real and that we should wear our masks, wear them correctly, wash our hands as often as possible, sanitize as often as you have to, stay away from huge crowds. And I'm hoping that good sense would prevail with that thought of schools being reopened on the 6th of January, that good sense would prevail to say to the installed minister that you have to sit with the teachers' representative for us to move the way, for us to make that charter that way forward with regards to any thought of reopening schools partially.
Thank you very much, Coretta MacDonald. I do agree with you that I too think that Priya can be a wonderful person and can do what is right, but somehow I do believe that she has a point to prove. And I do know that she said umpteen times that she is not a PPP, she is from the civic component. And perhaps it is because she claimed to be from the civic component, she believes she has this role and this point to prove that she is worthy to be considered a PPP. And more so, I believe that because Irfan Ali was or has ascended to the highest office in the land, perhaps she considered it as an insult to her and her academic achievement and to her and her academic accomplishments that such an individual who has questionable qualifications could become the president of this land where she was overlooked. So probably she foresees herself as the next holder of that office or the next person in line. And in order to achieve that, she may have to do the unconscionable, she may have to do the devil's work. And it seems as though she's prepared to go down that line of advocating the devil's work, promoting the devil's work, and basically, if I may say, to become the devil in the office of Minister of Education. And it's very unfortunate. But I want to take this opportunity to call on her, to call on the installed Minister of Education to recognize that we recognize that she has some degree of good in her. And we want her to bring out that degree of good. And we want her to build on that degree of good so that it can become abundant in society and she can become relevant to the cause of society developing into becoming better people and more so our children. Coretta MacDonald, I must tell you that earlier in the program I heard when Mr. Benchcop said that you and him, you guys went to the same
I need a thing to say.
Yes, sorry about that. I was saying that I did
Ganesh,
hear.
just before you go there, Ganesh, you are living in Region 3, and Region 3 is where the installed president lives. And it's just disheartening that even in Region 3, they can't fix the internet system properly, even in Region 3, and the president lives in Region 3. What a shame.
That is true. That is true. But let me say this: that I heard earlier that Mark Benchcop said that you and him, you guys went to the same school in Berbice there. But I want to tell you that one of our viewers did say that you look like a 16-year-old beauty. So perhaps
Thank
you
you.
need to let Mr. Benchcop know what is it that you are doing to keep yourself looking that young. And I believe it's deliberate that the operator had put that picture out there. But I want to tell you that a viewer indicated that you look like a 16-year-old beauty. So it is
Thank you.
necessary for you to tell Mr. Benchcop what is it that you're doing to look that young. And perhaps he will do that so that we can all say that he looks like a 16-year-old handsome
No,
person. But nonetheless, it has
maybe
been
that is why Priya is having a problem with me, because I look way young.
good competition. But I do recognize that Priya has a problem with you because the amount of comments I see on social media that is attracting her attention towards you is overwhelming indeed. But Coretta, thank you very much for being on tonight. Just for
You
our
too, Dan.
viewers to understand, you are here as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, and you are representing the Guyana Teachers Union and their position, not in your capacity as Honorable Member of Parliament with responsibilities for labor. Another night, I will endeavor to bring you on to speak on labor, but tonight it was all about education. The coalition believes that an educated nation is a developed nation. The coalition believes that education must not be a gift to the rich and a dream for the poor. We believe that education is necessary if we are going to develop this country, and the focus on education must be one that is holistic and one that attracts the attention of every Guyanese. And it must be handled in such a manner that you don't politicize it or you don't focus on political policies that can basically destroy a system where one is expected to grow from. An educated nation is a rich nation. An educated nation is a healthy nation. An educated nation is a developed nation. Thank you very much, Coretta, and see you back
Thank you.
sometime soon. Until then,
Thank
I
you for
say
having me
goodbye
here.
to all our
Good
viewers
night,
and
you too.
listeners. Take care. Have an enjoyable remainder of the night. Sleep well, and let's wake up tomorrow morning and back into the battlefield as we fight for a better Guyana for all our people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That little ditty we used to torment our teachers with when we were kids goes something like this. Onward, upward, Mary had a go. Day by day she tied it to a rope, till at length they got past the rope, and Miss Mary had to run behind it. We had a lot of fun with that, but do you actually know how beautiful these words are? Here's the Song of Guyana's Children by W. Hawley Bryant. Born in the land of the mighty Roraima, land of great rivers and far-stretching sea, so like the mountains, the sea, and the river, great, wide, and deep in our lives would we be. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. Born in the land of Kaijur, shining splendor, land of the palm tree, the croton and fern, we would possess all the virtues and graces, we all the glory of goodness would learn. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day, in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. Born in the land of Kaijur, shining splendor, land of the palm tree, the croton and fern, we would possess all the virtues and graces, we all the glory of goodness would learn. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day, in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. Born in the land where men sought El Dorado, land of the diamond and bright shining gold, we would build up by our faith, love, and labor God's golden city, which never grows old. Onward, upward, may we ever go, day by day, in strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana sons and daughters can be. Ready? Happy Independence Day, Guyana.